welcome to another special edition to One Night Only with Shane Antonio. Today we have a guest whose name is Kyri Demby. He is an author, a friend of mine, and I'm just excited to spend some time with you and talk to you about the new ventures you have going on. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm not going to complain. Nobody cares to listen.
You're right. Ain't nobody.
Ain't nobody listening to what I got to say when I'm complaining. So, listen, you highly decorated. I didn't even know you wrote this much. I didn't even know that you could write, let alone write 75 books. So tell me when you decided. How did you even decide to get into writing? Like, what was that?
I started writing because I teach. I'm a music teacher. So my first book was Biscuit the Musical Detective. I'm
Okay.
showing you my book.
Okay.
The first one was Biscuit the Musical Detective. And it just teaches music concepts to kids. And so after I started doing that, I kind of realized that my specialty is dealing with behaviors and helping children to behave like they're supposed to.
Does music help you link the two, like as far as behavior with kids and linking music to that? Does that help to you see better behavior out of kids when you introduce them to these new concepts, or are they still just as bad as before?
Well, now listen, they're gonna be bad. They're gonna be bad, but they have other coping mechanisms, or they have other tools that they can use. So when I say stop, think, and breathe and make the right choice, they can start using that. Okay, that's another tool to use. Okay. And so that's kind of.
So when you initially started this, was this something you just did in your classroom, and then that turned into later saying this needs to be a book? Okay, yeah. So when that happened, like what was the challenge of turning all this that was in the classroom into a book that people can actually read? Like, how was that process? What were the challenges to get it published?
Really the main challenge is when I tell stories in my classroom, I tell it in my voice like I'm just child. And child, let me tell you, I forgot to tell you about this. And I tell the kids, and that's how I talk to the kids. Right. So then when I try to write it down and then somebody edited it, they like, wait a minute, you can't say child. Now let me tell you, child, I forgot to tell you. Sometimes in some of my stories I do say that.
Because some of the characters might just talk like that.
Right.
So, but in doing that, like, were there any obstacles you had to overcome, like just to get it from out of your head to on paper and getting this thing out so people can actually put their hands on it? Like, what were some of the things you had to go through to get from here to actually we got it done?
Not really. I really didn't have that many obstacles because I would tell these stories all the time. And so the obstacle basically is remembering what I said and putting it on paper. Okay. So what I started doing was recording myself telling the story. Okay. And so then after I would go back and listen to it and piece it together, last time I added this, and this time I added this, and because this book, the first book I wrote, it was in so many different pieces. So then I had to piece it together to make one. So that would be the main obstacle.
Which is enough.
Right.
to figure out how to write the story.
Right.
You've been telling these stories all this time, and now you want to put it on paper. So now you got to figure out how to translate this. So it makes perfect sense. So now, how many books have you written in total since you began this journey of being an author?
8 books. I had to think about it.
That's okay. I mean, when you a writer, you got to think. Yeah. You might have books you ain't finished yet.
Well, it's still I have because each book is a different series unto itself. Okay. Biscuit is the musical detective, and so that's the music series, and I'm teaching music concepts like the kids use the decrescendo rate to make things get softer, and then Simon the Self-Controlled Seal started the Demby's Playful Parables, and that's basically where I teach behaviors and how to stop, think. That's like my whole saying: stop, think, and breathe, and make the right choice. And then I have the new series, The Tales of the Steel Quarters. Now that's where, if you can't get the children to act right, scare the hell out of them.
So this is the attempt to, if all the other things don't work,
right?
If this new
scare
one,
them.
the one to scare them straight. I got you. I mean, so what is your overall, I guess, hope for the books that you put out for the future? Like, what do you hope that kids and future generations can gain from these stories?
Tell people I want to be like Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss is dead, but people are still reading his books. They're still using his books to learn. You know, he had this book about the colors, and it still teaches emotions to kids. It's still, you know, everybody still watches The Grinch.
Right.
So
every Christmas.
Every Christmas. That's what I want my books to be like, that where kids can always, you know, go and use my books to learn whatever they need to learn.
Okay, so on a personal note, moving outside of just the writing aspects, because I mean, people know who you are, you know, outside of what you write and outside of, you know, the many books you got coming out. Like, so, like, what are some things like that, you know, that when you wake up in the morning or throughout your day, some things you just can't live without, things you just gotta do? Is there any things you just, like, every day I got to watch my Dr. Phil, like, every day I got to see People's Court? Like, what is it, a thing that Kyri has to do every day, or the day just isn't gonna be right?
I watch Forensic Files.
Listen.
Have my coffee and Forensic Files.
Okay.
Before I go to work, if I have like 20 minutes, because you know, I like shows like that because it's only in like 20-minute increments.
Right. So you ain't got to dedicate too much of your brain to it. Give you that 20 minutes to be
right
there.
before I got to go to work, I said, oh, I got 20 minutes, I can watch an episode of Forensic Files. So coffee and Forensic Files, that's my two things.
So did the Forensic File have anything to do with the music detective eventually being created, or was she already?
Yeah, she was. Actually, the music detective started as a story. My cousin is named Laurie.
Okay.
And so she was like a little heavier than others.
Okay.
So the music detective started off as a bakery detective. She was a 300-pound bakery detective.
Oh, okay.
And she was eating all the donuts and stuff. It was just a way to pick at my cousin because she had made me mad that morning. So it changed from that to the musical detective. I started writing the Lord Biscuit series when I was in high school.
Okay.
So like during my writing class, the teacher had us come up with different stories. And so that started in high school. So.
Okay. And so your background seems to be primarily in music, right?
Yeah.
So when was writing always like paired with it, or was it something that you like didn't really grasp until high school, or like how did you decide that writing was the next thing you wanted to venture into outside of music?
Because I've always been good at telling stories. I think I'm the Sophia from the Golden Girls. I'm always good
Picture.
My picture is Sicily. I be telling stories and I just make up stories on the spot sometimes. And then, you know, I'm a rambler, so I ramble a lot. So then I start making stories up.
Okay.
So but it really started when I started teaching, really, to like really hone in on the stories.
Okay. If somebody is trying to decide, like there's somebody out here that might be looking at the video or that may want to become a writer but don't really know, you know, what to do first, like, you know, how to really take the idea from being in here to putting it on paper, is there any kind of advice you can offer to them or how they can get started or make it happen?
Well, what I do, I write, I keep sticky notes with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, because you know, sometimes writing can be this big process and trying to write full pages and stuff like. So I just write ideas down.
Okay.
on the sticky note, and I put it in a notebook, like chapter 1, this idea, then the next idea, this idea. And so I just put little sticky notes because then you can chunk it.
Okay.
So that's what I do.
So kind of, in other words, just make it smaller. Instead you want to get the whole book written, but don't try to write the whole book right now.
Right.
Just write.
But then some people are good at like sitting down and just writing.
Yeah. But see, this is the person who hasn't quite figured out.
Right.
I want to write this book, but that's not coming out the way I need it to. So
Right.
I mean, if you think about that approach of taking it and making it more bite-sized, and then writing the book,
Right.
it makes more sense. I mean, and I can see how you've been able to crank out. You said 8 books. Are we working on anything, man? A 9th?
I'm actually in the process of doing Simon the Self-Controlled Seal Faces Bully the Blowfish. So my sister does the pictures for me, and she just finished the pictures, and so now we're going into the production stage.
Okay.
So it should be out like in a few months.
Okay. Well, listen, this is exciting stuff. I mean, it seems like you got this thing. People just need to just know who you are. I mean, the next Dr. Seuss is what he's telling me. So, that's what I heard you say. I don't know. I could be
With Dr. Seuss with a touch of Medea.
Okay, so Dr. Medea Seuss is in bookstores near you. Kyri, so are there any types of like workshops that you do, or like literary workshops, or even music workshops where you're able to incorporate your books that you do, or you teach anything like that, where you can kind of incorporate your books with students, or anything around the city or abroad? Like, what are you doing outside of just writing when it comes to promoting your works?
Well, actually, this summer will be my first adult presentation. Normally I go and present in front of children like I do it at the Y, and different schools have invited me to speak. And I speak at schools and do like the self-control presentation for kids and do different games with them so that they can, actually I've done it for a whole auditorium full of kids.
Okay.
But now this is my first time teaching teachers my method in St. Louis this summer at the PBIS Rewards Conference.
Okay. And it's going to be this year in 2020?
Yes.
Okay. So if I or anybody wants to find your work, where can we go obtain your books and support your work?
Well, you can, Amazon has all of my books. And also you can go to my website, Demby'sPlayfulParables.com.
And that's going to be on the bottom of the
Yeah,
screen.
it'll be on the bottom of the screen because that's a lot. So that's, but if you find Demby'sPlayfulParables.com, that's my YouTube channel.
Okay.
That's my Twitter channel, all of those, except Facebook. Okay. Facebook is Kyri Demby, but all of the other things, so you can connect with me through all of those things, YouTube, Instagram. I even started a TikTok.
Oh, TikTok.
The children been teaching me to use TikTok.
Listen, I got on TikTok and got immediately frustrated. It between that and what's the Snapchat?
Oh yeah.
I'm not able to can the way I thought I was going to be able to. So, but good luck to you on TikTok. If I see you out there in those TikTok streets, I will say hello. But don't count on me being there too long.
You're right.
I mean, so is that also the space, like if we go to your website, if somebody wants to book you or have you come out and speak or teach, is that also the same place to connect with you there and get your book as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can also buy the book from my website.
Okay.
You can buy it from me and Cash App me. The Cash App is on the website.
You like Cash App?
I don't know what it is, or PayPal, either or.
So all that's all available on the website for anybody who wants to check it out?
Yes.
Okay, well, awesome. So in regards to your writing, and do you want to strictly write for children, or do you have any thoughts of expanding the idea, maybe doing something more personal, like writing memoirs, or doing anything that's more or less for an adult audience?
Well, actually, this is my journal. and it's a year journal, a year to a better life.
Okay.
And I do a lot of my affirmations that I learned from Louise Hay, and so I'm getting into adult writing, and actually that goes with the workshop I'm doing this summer called the Self-Corrected Student.
Okay.
So I'm putting together a book for teachers on so that to teach them how to make their students self-corrected. Because like I have a lot of students who, they bad now, they bad, I ain't gonna lie. But they know how to say, look, Mr. Demby, I've gone too far. Like I had one student, he said, I'm gonna get out of here, I'll get out of here. And so he said, I go climb out the window. So he opened the window and pushed out the screen. And automatically he turned around and said, Mr. Demby, I went too far. Can I go pick it up? I said, yeah, we can go together. And so, you know, that's the kinds of things that I want teachers to teach their students, to be self-corrected, where I didn't even have to scream. He automatically knew I went too far. And I think
if I can pivot off of that, do you think that has a lot to do with you taking the time to invest in connection and relationship with these kids because they're willing to at least think about what they're doing versus just acting out?
Right.
I think, I mean, if I'm thinking about it on a grander scale, we hear a lot about teacher-student relations in like Jefferson County, for example, and how we have students that are fighting teachers or whatever the case is, and teachers defending themselves, rightfully so, but at the same time, I don't see a sense of connection between the teacher and the student. It was like thinking to myself when I was in high school, or elementary, or middle school, there was a relationship that I had with my teachers,
right,
and it kind of prevented that type of thing from happening. Where do you think that's changed? Like, what's happened between those days and now?
Well, a lot of teachers, a lot of teachers have become this because I said so kind of thing, you know. And that won't work anymore with students because I said so, I'm the boss, I'm the adult. Now you have to explain to students why, you know, and I talk to my students just like that. Well, the reason I don't want you to push out the window is because this could happen. So that's why I don't want you to, you know, and then we talk about it. I talk to them and I have this other thing called release the peeves.
Okay.
You know, all those teachers, I got this pet peeve, this is my pet peeve. You can't do that as a teacher, not in 2020, because, you know, whatever pet peeve you have is going to show up in your classroom.
Exactly.
And so in order to keep your sanity, release it.
Well, yeah, I mean, release pet peeves is almost like, you know, going into relationships with expectations. That's why would you do?
Right.
Why would you?
Because everything that you don't want is going to show
or
up.
everything you expect the other person to do.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
So you might as well just go ahead and what do you call it?
Release the peeves.
Release the peeves. I'm going to have to adapt this.
And make it for a relationship.
I might put it on a shirt, release the peeves, drop the expectation. We can, listen, that's a whole brand. We just came up with something right now on the spot. Y'all, production,
release the peeves, drop
a copy of this.
Show, put copyrighted, that's right.
Where's my other camera? You hear that? Release the peeves, drop the expectations. We got it. Well, Kyri, listen, I'm so excited about sitting down and having a chance to talk to you. I wish you great success, and I know this is not going to be the last time that we have a chance to sit down. Hopefully, you know, when you know, make it big and you doing your thing, you don't forget about little old me. We can do one of these again in about a year or so, and check up on you, see what you're doing. But in the meantime, at the end, we're going to give people all the information on how they can reach you, your website, how they can purchase your books, and how they can book you for future engagements. But thank you for sitting down and having me talk. No problem. Well, this we're going to close it out, people. This is another special edition of One Night Only with Shane Antonio with my good friend, Kyri Demby. You all have a good night.
These books and more can be purchased via Amazon.com and directly at Demby'sPlayfulParables.com. To connect with Kyri Demby via social media and to book workshops and speaking engagements, please visit Demby'sPlayfulParables.com.